Reading for pleasure expands your mind. Reading for work gets you a promotion. But Americans are pinched for time. Washington knows this. And every year, Congress spits out legislation gazillions of pages long, then manufactures a deadline to pass it, knowing Americans won't read it. The bill's too long, and the legislation isn't written in plain English. It's written to be indecipherable to everyone except the lobbyists who write it. And the media, whose job it is to read it and report it, they don't even bother anymore. They spin whatever the Democrats claims in it and attack Republicans who vote against it. And we've been hearing for weeks about how this bipartisan border bill is going to save America. How does the media know if they never saw the bill? Well, it was to condition you, whet the appetite for passage, and set up Republicans as fall guys if it fails. Well, the bill finally came out last night. Primetime read the whole 370 pages, and it doesn't stop a single migrant from breaking into the country. That's not me saying it. The Democrat senator who wrote the bill, Chris Murphy, declares, quote, "The border never closes." So if the border never closes, what's the $20 billion for? Processing illegals, handouts, and loopholes. The Border Patrol would start working on an honor system. This is Washington's idea of thorough vetting. Are you ready? Agents will now start asking border crossers tough questions before letting them in. Question 1, are you a criminal? No. Second question, you say you're fleeing Honduras. Is there another part of Honduras that's safer? No, I'm scared. Third question, you passed through Mexico to get here. Why can't you stay in Mexico? I can't. I'm scared. Welcome to America. If you pass that test, you're in. You have asylum. Who gives that test? Well, Biden's hiring thousands of asylum officers to ask migrants the 3 questions. This is a government jobs program that lets in more migrants. And if the migrants answer the 3 questions correctly, Biden hands them a work permit so companies can hire them instead of Americans because they're cheaper. And Nadler can get all the crops picked he wants. Are we going to detain any migrants at the border so we can deport the ones who are too stupid to say I'm scared 3 times? Well, this border bill buys just 15,000 new beds to detain migrants. That's about 2 days worth of illegals we're going to detain. And once the beds fill up in 2 days, they're going to let them go because you can't deport if you can't detain. Biden's border bill claims anyone they can't detain, which is pretty much everyone, they're going to strap ankle monitors to them. We're going to strap millions of ankle monitors to migrant legs every year? What, did Paul Pelosi buy stock in the ankle monitor company yet? And how are 2 million migrants whizzing through airport security with ankle monitors? Beep, 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 beep. Well, you just missed your flight because a village from Guatemala held up the line. Biden's also handing out 250,000 new family reunification visas. That means if you broke into this country and you missed your aunt, uncle, wife, or cousin, they can come in too. They're codifying chain migration. And remember all those Afghan refugees that Biden flew here after the Taliban took over? The ones heavily vetted at the violent airport? This bill fast-tracks their amnesty. That's 80,000 Afghans ready to vote in a few years. And if you're Haitian, Cuban, Venezuelan, or Nicaraguan, you can cut to the front of the line. Biden just paroles you straight into the country. These new neighbors are great for Democrats. Even though illegals can't vote yet, the census counts them for redistricting. That means states with higher head counts, illegal or not, get more House seats and more electoral votes. In 2020, California, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, and Massachusetts all gained seats. 24 seats that were lost all came from states that voted for Trump in 2016. Now, it gets better. Under this bill, every migrant gets a lawyer. $400 million go to lawyers for illegals. Lawyers just happen to be the Democrat Party's biggest donor class. Leave it to lawyers to write a pay raise into a border bill. Got to hand it to them. Now, surely the bipartisan border bill defunds the nonprofits who've been financing the caravans. Wrong. $1.5 billion go to the nonprofits so they can keep buying the migrants tents, food, and maps. There's also $250 million in migrant reparations. What are migrant reparations? Biden's going to take our tax dollars and pay the countries that the migrants claim they're too scared to live in. So if Biden decides to deport a migrant, which he won't and which he hasn't ever, he's setting aside money to reintegrate the migrants back into their home countries. How does Ecuador go about reintegrating a man born and raised in Ecuador? They don't. They just steal our money and claim the reintegration is going muy bueno and keep sending more migrants to keep the migrant reparations flowing. I asked the primetime producers, is there anything in this border security bill that dismantles the cartels? There's only $25 million. Democrats are giving the DEA just $25 million to fight the cartels. Lawyers are getting $400 million. Tackling the cartels, $25 million. This is how you know they aren't serious. So we keep hearing about this 5,000 migrants a day and the border automatically closes. Not true. If the Border Patrol averages 5,000 migrant encounters for a week straight, we're not talking about the gotaways, they'll say they'll close the border for a little while, but they don't want you to know about the loopholes. They actually never close the border. Migrants will still be processed into the country at ports of entry, meaning the cartels just funnel them to the ports of entry. Well, what about the rest of the border? That's shut down, right? No. Migrants can still show up anywhere along the border, and as long as they claim it's an emergency, they have to be let in. So even when the border is shut down, migrants can still come in. This means a shutdown border lets in at least 2 million illegals a year. That's more illegals a year than Bush, Obama, and Trump ever averaged. It's like twice as much. Biden's just locking in record numbers. Oh, and if this does get passed, there's a grace period. 3 months until any of these tough border policies kick in. Obviously, the minute it kicks in, someone's going to sue the administration to stop it. And the people who wrote this bill actually wrote what court will hear the motion. It's the most liberal court in the country. The D.C. District Court will hear all challenges to the border bill. The ACLU files a motion, the D.C. District Court agrees, slaps an injunction on it, and we get the status quo. They wrote the status quo into the bill. And the border bill's only $20 billion out of the $120 billion package. $100 billion is for defending everyone else's borders, Israel, Taiwan, and Ukraine. And Schumer says, if you don't bite, Biden's shipping your sons to war.
We're at a turning point in America. This bill is crucial, and history will look back on it and say, did America fail itself? Why is it crucial? Well, if we don't aid Ukraine, Putin will walk all over Ukraine. We will lose the war, and we could be fighting in Eastern Europe in a NATO ally in a few years. Americans won't like that.
Well, Americans don't want to go to war, but we won't be blackmailed. There's no way this bill is going to pass. But that's not the point. This is Washington's way of giving itself credit for not solving a problem it created. If you fall for this, you're part of the problem. And when the bill blows up, nothing changes, except the media can say MAGA Republicans murdered border security. Even 60 Minutes is in on it. After ignoring the border for 3 years, CBS wants to scare and shame Senate Republicans into voting for a fake fix. Watch.
So what's the fastest growing group among them? Chinese migrants. Yes, you heard that right, Chinese. We saw large groups, including many from the middle class, come through a 4-foot gap at the end of a border fence 60 miles east of San Diego. The illegal entryway is a new route for those hoping to live in America.
This border bill doesn't stop a single Chinese national from rolling their carry-ons into the country. They just answer, I'm scared, 3 times or claim it's an emergency, they're in. And when your biggest enemy sends brigades of people across your border, what do you call that?
It makes sense that they're taking people out and sending them up in caravans to the United States. And it's not just South America. It's from Africa, from Asia, from all over the world.
Asia.
Yeah. I mean, from all over the world. From China, there are 28,000 people in the last few months. 28,000. That's what's he doing? Building an army? And they were mostly men, almost all men, from the age of 18 to 25. So what's that all about?
I mean, it's almost like China has something on Biden. He could shut down the border tomorrow. He doesn't need Congress to give him additional power. All presidents have had the power since 1952. Title 8, Section 12 of the U.S. Code, hate to read it, but I will. Whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he may, by proclamation, and for such periods as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any restrictions he may deem to be appropriate. So the president, who has the power to close the border, says he needs $120 billion so we can close the border? But the architect of the bill says the border never closes? Do you get it now? Do you really think Biden is going to be rounding up migrants in Chicago into ICE buses during the Democrat National Convention this summer? If you believe that, then you fell for it.